Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. Even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too complex and too magnificent to be memorialized only in pain. The gifts of spirit our loved ones gave us cannot be measured or weighed, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our darkest hours, we know that the sum of their light and warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. Thank you for being here this morning. We are here to honor and remember Neil Howard Sattler, beloved younger brother of Larry Sattler and Bunny Cohen, loving father to Joel and Scott Sattler and Megan Nepperud, adoring grandfather to Allie, Emily, Peyton, Riley, Zach, and Jordan, and friend to so many. Neil was a man of great energy and creativity, deep integrity, and steadfast devotion to the people and things he loved. He dedicated himself fully to everything he did, whether it was balancing his own paper routes with helping out at his parents' grocery store as a child, serving in the Army Reserves as a young man, building his own business from scratch, or parenting his 3 beloved children and doting on his 6 grandchildren. And in everything he did, he strove to comport himself with dignity and honor, and to see and respect the dignity in every person he encountered. He managed to maintain a difficult and delicate balance of having a sharp mind, a firm resolve, and a tender and open heart. As his daughter Megan put it, Neil was fair and just. He stuck up for people, and he did what was right. He was, in so many ways, a pillar of our Milwaukee community, and he will be sorely missed. Today, we celebrate Neil's legacy of honesty, hard work, and respect for all people, and loving dedication to family and friends. And we commit ourselves to carrying forward that legacy. We'll begin our service with selections from the Book of Psalms, an ancient volume of devotional poetry to which we turn for comfort in times of sorrow. We'll open with Psalm 121, which you can find in your pamphlets, first sung in Hebrew, and then we will read it together in English.
Adonai, Shmot Seitecha.
We read together in the English. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help will come from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Eternal is your keeper. Adonai is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not harm you by day, nor the moon at night. God will guard you from all harm. God will protect your being. We continue now with the familiar words of Psalm 23, which we will first hear sung in Hebrew, and then we will read together in English.
Adonai roi lo exor min ode sheyar bitseni amen menuchot yunaleni nafshi yeshovev yachini b'magalet tzedek yanchini b'magalet tzedek l'man shemo. Gam kelich beget samavet lo ibarak yadayim adi shivtecha u'mishantecha emo yanachamuni ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorai dishon tov Hashem roshi kosi revaya akshav chesed yirvoni koyemei chayai shavti b'ved Adonai liorech yamim. Adonai roi lo exor. Adonai roi lo exor.
Please join me in reading the English words of Psalm 23. Eternal One, you are my shepherd, I shall not want. You make me lie down in green pastures. You lead me beside still waters. You restore my soul. You guide me in paths of righteousness for your name's sake. Even when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. With rod and staff, you comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You head with oil, my cup is overflowing. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in your house forever. The book of Ecclesiastes teaches that there is a time for every desire under heaven, a time for silence, and a time for speaking. To borrow from the language of Ecclesiastes, a memorial service is a time to speak, a time to remember our loved one by offering words about his life. Jewish tradition teaches that the purpose of a eulogy is to honor the dead and help them to move on from this life. But we know that it is also crucial for us in that it helps us to come to grips with our loss and to keep the memory of our loved one vivid in our minds. In that spirit, I'd like to invite Neil's children to come forward at this time to share a few words with us about Neil's life, beginning with his eldest son, Joel.
Hello, everyone. Safe to say, everyone here knew my dad, Neil, and everyone who knew him loved him, and he loved everyone in return. My dad taught me a lot that I'm grateful for, and I hope that everyone here had an opportunity to learn something from my dad at one time or another. My dad exemplified what it means to be brave. He was brave and independent in his 12-year fight against cancer, not letting it impact his quality of life or inconveniencing anyone else, and seldom, if ever, did he ask for help. My dad always had a positive attitude, despite the odds he was up against. He maintained his sense of humor and quick wit, even in his final days. He never complained. My dad taught me to be optimistic. You didn't hear him complain until the last couple months, really. He was a role model in making the most of the hand he was dealt. He taught me to stand up straight, keep my chin up, and be proud and confident. My dad showed me how to be proud yet humble. He would never boast, but he was so proud of his accomplishments and successes. He was most proud of his legacy, his children and his grandchildren. My dad was so supportive and encouraging. I could bring him any idea, any homework, any craft, any hobby, sport, and he would be so excited and encouraging, never judgmental, never negative, and he'd practice with me to help me become as successful as possible. Over the years, I would call him with news of a new job, news of a promotion, news of a raise. He would be so excited for me. I made his day with those calls. And I loved hearing the joy in his voice and how proud he was. My dad would do anything for those he cared for. All you had to do was ask, and he'd be there without hesitation every time. You always knew where you stood with my dad because he didn't mince words, and he was straightforward and brutally honest. My dad was a very direct communicator, and he didn't hold grudges. He taught me it's okay to be the first to apologize, even if it's difficult, because being the bigger person and moving forward is the right thing to do. My dad always made me apologize to my brother first when we'd get into fights as kids growing up. My dad taught me to love life and the experiences it has to offer. He loved to travel. He loved to meet and talk to people. He loved experiences. He always would say that. He loved experiences. He loved to travel with us and had aspired to take one more big trip with all of his children and grandchildren one day. My dad repeatedly told me over the years how important it is to both work hard and play hard. He taught me to try hard at everything I do. I too love to work hard, both at my career, around the house, and I love to have fun, and I too love to experience life. These attributes my dad taught me are now part of who I am, and these attributes I now strive to model to my kids. just as my dad modeled them to me for the 54 years that I was lucky to have known him. While the past week was incredibly tough emotionally and ultimately had a sad outcome, my brother and sister and I were fortunate to be able to spend 6 days around the clock, day and night, together. And while it may sound a bit unexpected, the time spent together with my brother and sister will be some of the most memorable time we've spent together in 25 years, since the night before my wedding. By the way, happy anniversary, Karen. For those of you not aware, today is our 25th wedding anniversary, June 23rd, 2001. But the night before, my brother and sister and I were together and horsing around and reliving memories, and it was I'll never forget those memories. It was so fun just being together, the three of us. And this past week, we were together with my dad, and it was really special, and I'll never forget it. I also want to thank my dad's caregiver, Glenn, for his skill, his patience, and the respect and love shown to our father. My dad was lucky to have crossed paths with you and have hit it off. We saw firsthand how wonderful a man you are. Thank you again. The past week was very emotional for all of us, and I realized what occurred while we were together at my dad's side. I experienced every emotion that I've ever experienced in my life all over the course of 1 week. You know, we had sorrow, and we had anger, and we had joy of some happy times, happy memories together. My dad's wit, keeping things light. We had confusion. It was surreal. It was every emotion all wrapped up based on one event in 1 week. So it was a very reflective week, to say the least. I also want to extend a thank you to the friends and family who are here with us today to honor Neil. Thank you to the friends and family who reached out during the past week, including Sunday, to express condolences and love for our dad and our family. It truly meant a lot to hear from each of you during this difficult time. It was a welcome distraction that brought a smile to our faces, if only for a few seconds. We love you all. I love you, Dad, and I'll never forget you. I'll always miss you, and the void you leave can never be filled.
I walked into Neil's bedroom last night. My first time really walking in and taking a look around since he's been gone. On his bedside table were his hearing aids. They were in the charger like they would have been every night. Right by his nightstand, where he slept for the past 20 years. He only wore them the past couple of years. He always had pretty good hearing. He didn't go to numerous rock and roll shows. He could hear pretty darn well without his hearing aids, even at the end, and it showed the past few days. Neil just always wanted to be a part of things. The details mattered to him. So many details and anecdotes I'll miss about my dad. He was incredible, truly one of a kind. He's the man I've looked up to and adored since I was a little girl. He made everything better, he made everything okay, and he did everything he could for the three of us. When I was little, anyone who remembers me back at that age, I wanted to be a boy, just like my brothers. I played basketball in the backyard at 4 or 5 and wanted everyone in my immediate family to call me Nikki, because I thought Nikki was the ultimate boy name. So I was out there in the backyard playing basketball without a shirt on as a four-year-old girl, okay, 4-year-old girl, relax. And he didn't care, he let me be me and just be one of the guys. Around the same time, I have fond memories of playing restaurant with him. In the evening, after he was done with work, he'd be lounging on the couch in the family room, and I'd be in the dining room, and I'd have like a little kitchen set up, and I'd go into the family room, and I'd have a little pad of paper, and I'd say, "Can I take your order?" And sometimes it was legitimate, and sometimes he was just so goofy with some concoction that he wanted me to make in the kitchen. And we'd laugh, and I'd go back and I'd try to put together his order. With so many years between me and my brothers, Joel being 9.5 years older than me, and Scott being like 4 years older than me, there wasn't much that we did together, but my dad played with me in this way. I was shy as a little girl. When the New Kids on the Block were coming to perform a concert in Milwaukee, my dad had a friend who was taking her daughter to the concert and offered to bring me along. I was too shy to go with people I didn't know. That's not the point of this. He tried his best for me, though, to give me all the experiences a kid would love. I remember on occasion when I was with him, we would go to McDonald's for dinner, the drive-thru. He would order a double quarter pounder with cheese, with ketchup, only ketchup, never mustard, relish.
Certainly not a pickle.
Not a pickle, yes. Only ketchup, and he loved ketchup. He attended every softball game from 3rd to 8th grade, and most of them while I was in high school, and was my transportation to and from the majority of those games during the 9 years I played. I remember holding back tears after a fly ball hit me in the chin in the outfield when I was in 6th grade. It was a game that he didn't drive me to, and I stayed strong out there until the inning was over, and he showed up, and I walked up to him and gave him a huge hug and just lost it and sobbed. I stayed so strong and held it together until he arrived. He always made me feel safe and loved. I remember heading down to the dry cleaners when I was a kid. I remember his office vividly, especially the boxes upon boxes of vending machine snacks he used to stock the vending machines with on his own. This is when I first tried Grandma's chocolate chip cookies and Mike and Ike's. Those are awful cookies, by the way, but Mike and Ike's are still a favorite, and I'll continue to be reminded of him when I see them in the candy aisle at a gas station. We only saw our dad twice a week, though he told me he would have loved 50-50 custody of us, and we would have loved that too. He made our visits together really fun and special. The Dells, Six Flags, the arcade at Phil Brothers at Bayshore after eating dinner there, go-karting at Johnson's Park on 76th Street, dinner at Big Boy on Port Washington Road, attending many Brewers and Bucks games together. I remember when he would heckle Duffy, the third base coach from the Brewers, at every game. "Hey, Duffy!" He was on the third base line and pretty close. It was obvious Duffy could hear it. But when I was in 5th grade, I called him on a Saturday morning when he was at work. He was always at work on Saturday mornings. And I asked if he would take me to a nearby mall to get the signatures from the cast of Saved by the Bell who were there. Of course he would. He accompanied me to the car dealerships, overseeing negotiations for new cars. He looked at apartments with me on the east side of Milwaukee and in downtown Chicago. He helped me and both of my brothers with our relocations and move into apartments. Our dad loved to travel and see the world. Besides by plane or on a cruise, he loved road trips. We took a couple road trips together, just the two of us. In 2000 and 2001, each road trip was about 7 to 10 days, and then the following summer we vacationed in Florida, staying on the Gulf side, and then crossing to the east side to visit Ron and Renee. He enjoyed listening to talk radio, which was so boring to a 20-year-old, and he sipped from his favorite travel coffee mug the whole day. He loved having the windows rolled down. Being able to call him any time of day and talk about anything, for ideas for school projects, for dating advice, about the Wordle, comparing our daily Wordle results and the guesses that got us there. More times than not, he got the Wordle solution in just 3 or 4 guesses. The thing that was wild was that he started with a different word every day. Recently I called, and pretty soon after saying good morning, I asked, "Did you get the Wordle?" And he said, "Yeah, I can't believe it was..." And I'm like, "No, I didn't do it yet." I scolded him. We both found it hilarious. So needless to say, what did I do? I sent my friends the Wordle in 1 guess because my dad accidentally slipped me the answer. I fessed up. I've worked as an oncology physician assistant at Frederick Hospital for the past 8 years. I got this job offered to me by my dad's oncologist when he was first diagnosed with multiple myeloma, and my dad proudly shared that I was in PA school at the time. "Come work with us when you're done with school," he offered. I finally took him up on that later in 2018. It's been difficult to work in this field to see such sad scenarios play out during patients' hospital courses. Luckily, Neil beat multiple myeloma, which is exceptionally rare to do. Truly, 0 multiple myeloma after his stem cell transplant, and it never came back. In 2019, I started calling him on my drive home from work, which was at midnight, and still is at midnight. Who willingly looks forward to and accepts phone calls in the middle of the night? Only him, my dad. He'd ask me about my night at work, and I'd sometimes share some stories about patient encounters. He always kept track of my week. He was special in that way. He knew when I was starting my week and when I ended my week and when I was off. And that was during the past 8 years. After Neil developed a bowel obstruction as a complication of his bladder cancer last July, about 40-something weeks ago, he was admitted for 2 weeks. After he got home, I stopped calling him on my drives overnight. As an oncology PA, I understood at this time he would need his sleep. About 3 months ago, he said to me, "You know, you don't call me anymore on your drive home." And I replied to him, "You need your sleep." And he said, "It doesn't matter, I'll roll over and go back to bed." Again, who does that? Neil loved laying in the sun at the pool or on his patio, reading a book, or just laying with his eyes closed behind sunglasses with the heat beating down on him. Neil had an affinity for picking out good produce, and he shared those secrets with me. Let me tell you, that has definitely come in handy, having 2 boys who would happily eat only fruit. Yep. Neil had a knack for jigsaw puzzles. He probably completed dozens of 1,000-piece puzzles. Several were on display in our basement when we were children until I was 8 and my parents got divorced. I came across one on eBay recently and purchased it for the nostalgia. To me, it's a nearly impossible appearing puzzle. It's circular, and it's described as a jigsaw puzzle of a jigsaw puzzle with varying shapes and colors of pieces. He did it in the 80s, and it was one of the few that I remembered being on our basement wall. Someday I'll complete it, maybe with my boys, and I'll fondly think of him. Neil loved crossword puzzles, just like his mom Toby and his uncle Seymour. After Mary died, he continued to work through them, now at his kitchen table at mealtimes when he was alone. And now it breaks my heart how often he sat at that table alone. My dad loved to take a drive in October to enjoy the fall colors. He loved the color orange like I do. My husband Brian introduced me to camping, and my dad would come to the campsite and visit and stay for dinner at both Ottawa Lake and Point Beach. On our road trips, I remember chasing sunsets with him. I remember watching them from the shore of the beach in Fort Myers. And of all nights, the sunset the night Neil died was full of color, vivid stripes across the sky, blue, pink, orange, purple. It was truly magnificent, just like our dad. Earlier this year, my dad taught me to play cribbage. It was a game he truly excelled at and played thousands and thousands of times. We played a few times over the past year, but it wasn't enough. It will never be enough, but I'll take what I had. I'll miss his phone calls from Vegas after a big win at the blackjack table or video poker machine. I'll miss all of his phone calls. Every July, we attended Festa Italiana around dinner time on the last night and stayed for the fireworks, since they're the best on the last night. And always, we crossed paths with Tony Catalano on our way out. He knew people in Milwaukee everywhere we went. He helped Mary make chocolates every fall to gift generously to others at the holidays, and he continued that tradition, sort of anyway, making toffee and bringing it to some holiday gatherings. Neil developed a hobby for bird watching later in life, and he took great pride in maintaining the bird feeders and the bird bath in his backyard, monitoring the status of the suet blocks and the bird bath. He was always there to instruct me when I helped him to do it just so, like he wanted it done. He respected his possessions and taught me the same, to respect others' belongings early on, and I'll never forget that. He used to genuinely enjoy washing and waxing his Acuras, which he owned or leased back to back to back to back to back since they hit the market in 1986. Neil was basically a connoisseur of thin crust pizza. His favorites were Zaffiro's on Farwell and Ann's Pizza in Hales Corners. If we went anywhere else for dinner, he'd let us know during or even after the meal if he found the crust to be too chewy, or there was not enough sauce, or there was too much sauce for his liking. If you were lucky enough to join Neil for dinner at a pizza joint, you already knew he'd ask the server, are the mushrooms canned or fresh? And if they were canned, he only had sausage and onion on his pizza. A running joke of his, if you were ever out for dinner with him, was at the restaurant when the waitstaff asked after the meal, can I get you anything else? He'd ask, do you have Schaumtort? If you know me, you know I was very careful during COVID, not only because I work in oncology and felt a social obligation to my patients to keep them safe, but I was pregnant with Jordan and then caring for a newborn. I made my own sourdough starter and tried plenty of new recipes. Brian would tell you that I'm not the best planner when I go grocery shopping. And so I kind of referred to my dad as my runner. If I needed brown sugar, if I needed chives, sour cream, whipping cream, he'd pretty much drop everything, run to a store, and bring it over to my house within 45 minutes. And I didn't necessarily need it right that moment, but he just did that. He was so happy to help and to be there. He was happy, truly happy to be depended on for us whenever he could. We would meet at Cafe 1505 many, many times. He loved their French toast and their cinnamon roll French toast too. Zach and Jordan, Papa Neil loved you so much. He was so proud of you, and he loved to stop over to visit. He loved to see your Lego creations and your artwork and hear about your day-to-day lives. Jordan and I started going to baseball games together, and he was really excited about that too. He would be watching on TV, and we were at the game, and we would kind of follow along together over text message. Zach recalls Papa Neil's sense of humor and shared that Papa Neil would joke to him not about hot wheels, but cold wheels. When I asked Papa Neil last week on hospice, "What do you want me to teach my boys?" he simply said, "Respect." "Okay, anything else?" And he said, "Honor." Neil had a strong moral compass and pretty much always did the right thing. He was honest, and he had an incredibly strong work ethic. I don't know anyone who worked as hard as he did, and I didn't know anyone who worked 7 days a week and never took a day off. He couldn't. He referred to his business philosophy as, you have to run a business like a business, or it fails to be a business. Everyone who knew Neil will remember him for his generosity, his smile, his enjoyment of life's simplicities. Zach and Jordan, I hope you always remember how much Papa Neil loved you and your memories with him. Him coming over for Passover Seder, bringing you trucks and toys he thought you'd enjoy from Menards during COVID, which secretly drove me crazy because they're toys from Menards. But it was from his heart. He had such an enormous, generous, caring heart for the people he loved. He will live on in our hearts and in our memories forever. We love you, Papa Neil.
Hi, everybody. Happy Father's Day. Now, like never before, I feel so strongly that it's a pointless holiday. One day a year we get to honor our fathers. Seems like we dads get shortchanged. Now, fathers come in all different metaphorical shapes and sizes. Some are good, some not so much. Some are great. And by the way, these critiques presume children know their fathers at all. My dad was a great dad. By the way, moms get shortchanged, but that will have to be another day, hopefully many years from now. I grew up in a household where, from as far back as I could remember, my dad worked every day. He owned a laundromat, dry cleaners in Milwaukee's inner city. It paid the bills, as they say. He filled the traditional role of breadwinner while my mom stayed home and did what we refer to as mom stuff. Ran the household, made sure we were fed, hair combed, teeth brushed, and got our homework done. My dad was home from work for dinner, and we normally ate dinner together. On weekends, we would go out to eat once in a while or go over to dinner at our grandparents' house. To say I had a father figure in the home in my much younger years, that proverbial box was checked. He was a person in the household, but my interactions with him during those years were cold and empty compared to the fabric of the relationship he and I would one day forge. Now, he would scold us when needed, help us with our school projects, throw us in the backyard pool, take us for rides in the car, play catch with us in the street, things like that. Many of you probably have similar memories of doing things like that with your dads. My parents had a very challenging marriage, and they separated and then divorced when I was around age 14. My brother was around 17, my sister was around 9. For all of us, it was very difficult, and it was as it was for any children of divorced parents. Around this time, I had friendship issues with some of my peers. It was probably the most challenging part of my life being a teenager, no different looking really than anyone else, average smarts, trying to balance being myself and fitting in at the same time. Just a kid going through adolescence alone, parents freshly divorced. Sibling relationships didn't really exist at this time either. Thankfully, that has changed. The judge granted joint custody to my parents, which in our situation meant kids live with mom, fathers get visitation 2 or so times a week, including one weekend day. My dad would take us out for dinner or make dinner at his place. Weekends would involve activities such as going to visit the Arnsteins, or to a friend or family member's swimming pool, or to a movie, or sometimes meeting a special girlfriend of his. One day, probably around age 15 or so, and I can't remember the situation, I was giving my dad a hard time about something he said to me. His response was, "I'll never lie to you no matter what," along with, "You can ask me anything you want, anytime, and I'll always be honest with you, but you may not like my answer." Something got rewired in my mind around that time. The first stitches of a fabric of a relationship began to get sewn. Lots of questions about beliefs, about work, about his friends and friendship in general, about cars, about money and the stock market, of course. Stories about growing up on the west side of Milwaukee, about how to pick the best produce, about family, about all sorts of things a guarded yet curious teenager/late bloomer would want to know. He introduced me to a wired palette of cuisine, including salads, filet mignon, and Chinese food. This is Milwaukee in the 80s and 90s, so the foodie scene has come a long way since then. Most cuisine in Milwaukee to a teenager was pizza, fast food, and other junk food. In the 90s, my dad was a good-looking, smart, single, 40-something business owner who was a personal, fun-loving guy. He would go out a few nights a week, often after dropping us back off at home. He had dates, made acquaintances, probably who were going through the same midlife challenges he was. It stood to reason that my curiosity would lead me to asking Dad about girls. He was a good-looking guy. In social settings, he was a funny guy, excuse me, and the life of the party. He had great jokes, dry, punny, and full of wit. By the way, I brought a second copy in case you want me to read it again. We now call them dad jokes. And he drove nice cars, having driven successive new Acuras every few years since they were introduced back in 1986. Social life. He seemed to have some skill in this area. Recall, I'm the basically friendless teenager at this point. Heck, even some of the girls I knew thought my dad was good looking. Gross. And if you think that's bad, the hospice nurses came in on Sunday and go, "Wow, your dad was a really handsome man." But I digress. So we're at this timeline. I'm now in high school. Different friend issues, so that's good. Some dates, maybe things were looking up, not particularly motivated with academics, and perhaps it was because I saw my dad, a role model, who's working his butt off, and at the same time having a good time, and we all while we cultivated our relationship. I figured if I could get through high school and college and work my butt off, I could be as successful or maybe even more successful than my dad. Our relationship grew and continued in high school and in college. I did start getting some dates in high school and college, so that's good, and would lean on my best friend, our relationship, and his opinions about Milwaukee restaurants and other things to do on dates. I didn't know it at the time. Only now, looking back, somehow my best friend was 30 years older than me. My dad. Eventually, I moved to Chicago, following my brother, Joel, another role model of mine. I was on the search for love. My dad found love in Mary. Joel found love in Caird. Maybe Chicago holds the answer to my prayers. Yeah, laundry rooms, I heard you. Happy anniversary, by the way. My dad always took the responsible approach. After all, he owned a successful business. His employees depended on him being a good businessman. He wanted good relationships with his children, and he did the best he could. A few weeks ago, I was reminiscing about how our beloved childhood dog, Shayna, was dying. My mom called my dad, believe it or not. They were divorced around 10 years at this point. It wasn't his dog anymore. My dad rushed over, saw Shayna, who perked up a little bit, but still didn't move. He knew what to do. He picked her up, put her in the car, and took her to the vet to be put down. It was very sad. No thanks were required, no medals, just do what has to get done. He wasn't macho about it. It was part of his persona, be a man and act the way he should. He saw the end result, built a plan in his mind, and put it into action. Some today might call it flow. In 2000, my dad, who around this time had sold his successful business, and who by this time was married to his wife, Mary, who was his life partner for 20 years, borrowed a truck and helped me move from Milwaukee to Chicago. I talked to him almost every day at this point. He was a stable, loving, supportive force in my life, still my best friend. We would talk about stocks, my dating life. He was happily married, remember? I was working at the accounting firm, telling him about that and other things happening in Chicago. Fast forward a few more years, and I met the love of my life, Beth. I remember one morning when Beth and I were dating and starting to get serious, so she decided to surprise me by coming over for coffee, wink, wink, one Sunday morning. I knew my dad and Mary were coming to visit. They had heard a little about her, so how cool would it be if she opened the door when they knocked? Sure enough, Beth, who never shies away from a challenge like that, opened the door. To my dad and Mary's surprise, they probably thought, what is a girl doing in my son's condo? Beth had a beaming smile and welcomed them inside, and they welcomed her into our family. Dad and Mary came down every time they were invited, had dinner with Beth and me, and we did things like Tony and Tina's wedding, or just went out and hung out. I'm grateful my dad was at my wedding. It's going to be so painful watching our wedding video, seeing his speech and his dancing at the reception and just having a great time. When Beth got pregnant with both Peyton and Riley, he was in the waiting room for both births. A month or so before Peyton was born, I remember it vividly to this day. Beth and I were driving on Sheridan Road, and we were probably going off on some errand, and I got really sad. Her dearest grandfather had just passed away. And somehow at that moment it struck a chord. Tears welled up in my eyes. I told Beth I wanted to call my dad and make sure he would be there when Peyton was born. That was the first time I cried like that in a long time. I got the words out, asking him to be there, and of course he and Mary would be there. After Peyton was born, I came out to the delivery room and we gave the news to Beth's parents and to my dad and Mary. They were so excited. And of course, my dad was at Riley's birth while Mary stayed at our house and looked after Peyton. Mary died of lung cancer in 2011. It had a profound impact on my dad, having lost his soulmate, but eventually pulled himself through it and began even dating a little bit. Spent time with us and my brother and sister and their families. It was the first modern loss of life, someone our parents' age in our family. We still had grandparents in 2011. I had two, Beth had two. Some of them still drove. So Mary's death hit home. Mortality is beating down the door of the next generation. Mary and my dad had a warm, loving relationship. They made each other happy. We recently discovered the cards Mary would send my dad as she traveled for business. Just a quick, cute little, I love you, written inside. Short, but genuine enough to know she struck that chord we all feel when we feel love from someone. We also found a box of sympathy cards from all their friends, the outpouring of support from all those connections they forged over the years. Over the following years, for as many occasions as he could, my dad attended so many of the kids' birthday parties, holiday events, Thanksgivings, their bar and bat mitzvahs. When the kids were younger, we would make plans for the four of us to come to Milwaukee and spend the night with them. He always welcomed our visit, and it must have been so hard for him to say goodbye to us as we made our way back to Chicago. My dad served as a wonderful support system, a regular call, asking my dad to come down to help with one task or another was met with, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Didn't matter what it was, hanging out with the kids, having dinner, anything. During COVID, he even went to Woodman's for me to buy and deliver grape nut cereal because, I always need to have 6 of those 4-pound boxes. I can never run out. Then what? My dad's first bout with cancer in 2014 was a wake-up call for all of us. He was complaining of back pain, and after several appointments and scans, we learned about multiple myeloma. During one of our phone calls at that time, he reminded me how he never had a chance to get close to his father, who ran a grocery store in Milwaukee and who also worked every day. I did learn more recently that he was very close with his mother. Anyway, he attacked his first bout of cancer head on, taking the treatments like a grown-up, and made a full recovery. He was so courageous and had a positive outlook. When repeatedly asked why he was so positive, his answer was along the lines of, "What choice do I have?" and commented that it's no fun being around someone who sulks and complains all the time. After his recovery, Dad had several good years, which involved travel. After all, he and Mary had loved traveling, having gone on various cruises to various tropical destinations, to China, and driving through the western U.S. He took every chance possible to take some more road trips, even if it was alone. We also got to enjoy a trip to Mexico with him. Dad loved being outside. Summers in Milwaukee, while short, are quite lovely. You could find Dad at a Brewers game at County Stadium, or just driving with the windows or the convertible top down, or lying on the patio or grilling out. When Beth, the kids, and I went camping, he would show up for a burger and hang out. Heck, even being outside washing his car in the driveway brought him joy. My dad was the eternal optimist, but not to the point of being foolhardy. He learned of bladder cancer in 2022. The treatment included removal of his bladder, along with chemotherapy and immunotherapy. We've all seen those countless pharmaceutical commercials where they show people in some condition and they're singing and dancing like it's a musical number and having a good old time, living their life, and then at the end of the ad, they mention all the side effects they expect maybe no viewer to pay attention to. This is where Dad's life took a turn and a decline in quality, the side effects. One of the drug side effects was ulcerative colitis. It doesn't impact everyone, but luck, as it seemed, was starting to run out. Dad had literally dodged a bullet when he owned the cleaners that got robbed in the mid-'80s. 2 of his employers were shot, but he wasn't. Then he had appendicitis and cancer round 1. Gallbladder was also removed. Intestinal blockage last year. We had hoped and were thankful that in each instance God was sparing him, maybe teaching him and us some sort of lesson. Eventually the drugs and chemo didn't work. There was never a bathroom close enough. Weakness, pain, lots of pain. The pain medications got stronger and stronger. One visit a few months ago, I began to start to wonder if this would be my last visit. I started to get sad and tears started. My dad's response, "It's okay to cry." You all know how the story ends. Here we are together. This past week, I've taken several looks around Dad's home. It was such a loving atmosphere, even in those moments of sadness. Bright, high ceilings, birds chirping outside the windows, spacious. This is not a real estate ad. All was in order, efficient, thoughtfully appointed, and a safe, happy space. And all his knickknacks, a lifetime of trips, random gadgets purchased, and pictures taken of us. Looking through at my brother, sister, and I realized that this felt so much like our home, despite none of us ever actually living there, besides the occasional sleepovers throughout the years. It was almost like a sort of, trap for us in case we forgot at some point how much we loved him. Where all these reminders of his life, his experiences, and with his children and grandchildren tucked closely in. He knew and understood people. This was like his last way of showing it. I'm not sure of all the lessons here. There's probably several, and all are important in their own way and in no particular order. You can never spend too much time with those you love. We've all probably heard it hundreds of times, to cherish the moments you spend with loved ones. Live and laugh. I can respond to that. I've taken an extra few moments at special times in my life. I remember holding the thought of being on the bema at my wedding. I remember holding each of my kids' little hands with a finger right after they were born. More recently, Riley with skating and dance and lacrosse, Peyton with band and chess. These are moments I treasure. Making partner at work, different but important. And spending so much time by my dad's side in his most vulnerable moments. the past several days, watching life fade away, something no one wants to remember and no one should experience. We all heal, and we'll see if time heals all wounds. I talked through so many things with my dad over most of my life, but not this. Instead, I get to tell all of you. He was there for me in a special way for so many years. There's a dad-shaped hole in my heart. Tell your family you love them. Spend as much time as possible with them. Tell stories, assemble, and then look at picture albums. Picture albums, those are those things we had before smartphones. Try to bring a smile to their faces. Say something funny, cheesy, goofy. Who cares? There are moments they'll remember, look back on fondly, maybe with a smile or a tear. As for the most valuable commodity, time, driftaways. Remember and celebrate good times. Everyone has their sorrow and tragedy in their life. Megan, you're a PA in oncology. Your perspective, yet warmth, while balancing the role of medical professional with daughter, was so valued in the last few years. Joel and I will be eternally grateful for your dual role, while always prioritizing the father-daughter role, of course. In closing, I want to express a warm, heartfelt thank you to Glenn for the past few weeks, doing so many things in a gentle, kind way to help make our father more comfortable, help him maintain his dignity and quality of life, some mobility and some company. None of us, my dad included, could have gotten through this period in our lives without you. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for all of the beautiful words you just shared. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it is truly a gift to your father and to everyone here to hear what you have to say about his life. And it's very, very clear how deeply you all loved him and how deeply he loved you. Neil's love was a beacon that illuminated the lives of his family, his dear friends, and his Milwaukee community. He was born here in 1945 to parents Paul and Toby Sattler of blessed memory. They owned and operated a neighborhood grocery store that provided a vital service at a time when there were not supermarkets the way we see them today. And Neil was the youngest of three, and it showed in his personality. His sister, Bunny, diplomatically described him as a little bit of a rascal. And his brother, Larry, was a little more direct, calling him Wild Thing. He was definitely a playful child. He could be a bit of a clown and a troublemaker, but he stayed out of real trouble. And at the same time, he carried a deep sense of responsibility and an enterprising spirit from a very young age. By the time he was 11, he had multiple paper routes, and he also helped out at his parents' store, where his gift for numbers began to shine through. When the store cash register broke, Neil would simply ring up customers' totals in his head with total accuracy. As was mentioned, Neil's parents worked incredibly hard. Their store was open from morning to midnight, 364 days a year, leading to an ongoing family tradition of celebrating Hanukkah together on Christmas Day. And Neil absorbed his parents' work ethic and their kindness. According to Art Arnstein, Neil's best friend since childhood, Neil's parents treated everyone like family. Neil, Art, and their friend Eddie were inseparable from the moment they met in Hebrew school, spending every weekend together and dancing their Saturday nights away at the JCC's Teen Lounge, where Art and Eddie's band, the Night Riders, often played. Neil was a true entrepreneur with a knack for seeing opportunities, the chutzpah to pursue them, and the work ethic to bring them to fruition. When he and his brother served together in the Army Reserves, Neil had the clever idea of bringing a fridge and some snacks and drinks down with them to their summer training camp so they could set up a little commissary for their fellow servicemen. Neil's creativity and sharp mind made him perfectly suited to a career in business. And after trying out a few avenues, he ultimately settled on creating his own dry cleaning and laundry business, which thrived under his direction right up until the day he sold it. The success of his business had everything to do with the kindness and respect with which he treated customers and employees. If a customer needed a clothing repair they couldn't afford, Neil would go ahead and do it anyway, sometimes allowing them to pay back later, sometimes simply paying for the repair himself. He never forgot a name, and he never turned anyone away. He received countless invitations to weddings and baptisms from grateful customers. And he also took care to protect his employees, making sure to always be timely with their paychecks and allowing them to take tips. And it's no wonder that his employees never left him. Neil loved so many things. He delighted in spending time outdoors in the sunshine. He rooted for his beloved Braves, Brewers, and Bucks. He followed every game, and he knew every player's stats by heart. He was a patriot who loved his country and served it honorably. He loved good food and good company, but above all, he cherished his friends and his family. He was always there for his children and his grandchildren, always ready to help with anything they needed and to offer encouragement. And he was incredibly proud of them, sharing stories of their accomplishments with anyone who would listen. His love and devotion to his dear ones radiated outward, bringing light and warmth to every life he touched. Jewish tradition teaches that all human beings are created b'tselem Elohim, in the sacred image of God. It's an easy thing to say, but it's a much harder thing to live. Neil managed to embody this ideal, treating every human being with the utmost respect, dignity, and care. We will always cherish his finely honed mind, his quick wit, his resilient spirit, and his kind and generous heart. May Neil's life and his legacy continue to bring us light and warmth and sustenance, to illumine our way forward. And may his memory forever be a blessing to us all. We're going to turn now to a prayer called El Malei Rachamim, meaning God full of compassion. It's actually not found in your pamphlets, but it is a prayer we traditionally offer for loved ones who have passed away. And in this prayer, we will ask God to hold Neil close, and to help him to find rest and peace. Our soloist, Megan Guterman, will first chant the prayer in Hebrew, and then I will read it in English. I would invite you to please rise as able for El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochem Bamramim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tacha Kanfei HaShechina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Tehorim, K'Zohar Nishmod Nehemia ben Pinchas v'Tobi shehalchu le'olamo b'ganin intehei menuchato lachin ba'ahar rachamim yasirehu b'sidek rafav le'olamim V'yitzror ונו Amen.
O God, full of compassion, who dwells in the highest heavens, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to Neil Sattler, our loved one who has entered eternity. Let him find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. For you, the everlasting God, are his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Please remain standing. In a few moments, many of us will travel together to Second Home, where we will have the honor of helping to lay Neil to rest. But before we do so, especially for those of you who will not be able to accompany us, we want to join together in one more prayer, the Mourner's Kaddish, which you can find in your pamphlets. Please join me in reciting the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chaye chon uvyome chon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world. And together we say, Amen. You may be seated.
Friends, services will continue at Second Home Cemetery in Milwaukee. We will not be going in a funeral procession. Following burial, today and today only, everyone is cordially invited back here to Congregation Shalom to visit, have a meal of consolation, and to be present with the family. For those of you who need instructions to the cemetery, we have them printed on maps outside of the sanctuary. At this time, if you're comfortably able to do so, we invite you to rise. Pallbearers, please come forward.